Well, it's just a few minutes to 9 o'clock and the polls are about to close, so we're going to be bringing you the live action as polls start reporting. It couldn't be a more exciting night, so stay with us here at Rogers TV. Settle in for the night. In fact, get yourself some popcorn and hunker down because we're going to have a lot of fun tonight with all of you. We are bringing you also some color commentary. We have Michael A. Charbon with us. He is our political analyst and, dare I say, political junkie.
Hi, Niru.
Hi, Michael. How are you?
Wonderful, thank you. Looking forward to finding out some results and seeing where our next government is going to be.
Well, I'm glad we're doing it together. It's been quite an interesting journey we've been on since 2011 to the snap election. Were you actually surprised by the fact that we're going to the polls?
No, not at all. I think there was many indications from the Hudak party and group that they were getting ready to have an election. It really was in the hands of the NDP to determine when and if, but you could tell that there was rumblings that it was time to get ready for an election.
Now, you mentioned the NDP. They held the balance of power, and I think you say that because back in 2011, when McGuinty brought the Liberals back to Queen's Park, it was with a minority government. They won only 53 seats. There are 107 seats in the provincial parliament, and any party needs 54 in order to govern with a majority. So they came in with 53, and what happened along the way, 2011 to today, they now have 48 seats.
Correct. May 2nd, the government was dissolved, and the standings were 48 for the Liberals, 37 for PC, 21 for the NDP. So you can see that no one has a majority, and what a lot of things are materializing and what we're reading in the press, too close to call. But the real thing that's going to determine today is this beautiful little card that we hope everybody used. This is not the one that I used because I had to leave the one that I used today. But this X really is what's going to determine what's going to happen in our province.
So what time did you go out to vote?
I went, it was about 10:15. I did it first thing in the morning. And no lineups. It was beautiful, well organized, and I knew exactly where I was going to put my X.
So did I, and I had a great experience at 9:15 this morning. So glad to know that the two of us got out. Ontarians, I hope you voted. You exercised a privilege and a right and a responsibility, I think, to get out there and cast your ballot, something that a lot of people in a lot of countries actually don't take for granted, the way some of us might hear. Michael, so the election was called. There were by-elections that took place. We lost some, the Liberals lost some seats. Going into this now tonight, what do you anticipate? How do you think things are going to play out?
Well, one can't be a predictor because we want to be able to find out what the results are. But as we've been reading in the press, things are too close to call. So if things are too close to call, you would say that the two leading parties, that would be the Liberals and the Conservatives, would be the two parties taking the lead. And again, could conceivably be that the NDP will have the ability to determine who the government will be, unless there is a huge swing, and that's yet to be seen.
Yeah, it was funny because polls leading up to this election were all over the place. So we'll talk about that a little bit more later. Michael, stay with us. We'll get you back in a bit. And the polls are now closed. This is a very exciting moment because we're going to start getting the results, as you can see on your screen. We are going to start giving you the numbers, candidate by candidate, riding by riding. You're going to get all your information right here. On the screen, you're going to see in front of you an example. We've got Brampton, Springdale, the riding here. And you'll see all of the candidates. You'll see the numbers as they come in real time. At the bottom, you have the total count for each of the leading parties. And you also have a ticker tape with the latest results that are going to come in. So you really don't need to go anywhere other than here. I'm sure you're going to want to stick with us. We've got a lot of fun things to talk about, starting with the role of social media, which has become no small player, I think, in the political landscape. People are all over social media talking. It's trending right now, and we're going to go to Nav Nanwa, who's going to be following all that and giving you lots of fun, interesting feedback from Twitter.
Thanks, Niru. As you know, social media is becoming an important part of people's lives, and just like the old saying was, you know, shaking hands, kissing babies if you're a politician. But now the new saying is, shake hands, kiss babies, and now tweet. Really go out there and really find ways to deliver, you know, your campaign message. And it's been very interesting. And, you know, this is a very interactive show. So if you want to join on any of the conversations, we urge you to use the hashtag #PeelVotes. Yes, that's hashtag #PeelVotes. And we'll read out your comments, and depending on, you know, what the results are, you know, what your thoughts are on the current party campaigns. We'll even also even single out some, some politicians, who are actually running in the election and see what they are saying as the results are rolling out.
What have people been saying so far? Can you give us a sense of, what the mood is out there in the electorate?
Well, a lot of the election feedback that we've been seeing on social media has been focused around voting. And I'll give you an example right here. Sue Lawton, who's a Peel Board trustee, sent us a tweet using the hashtag Peel Votes. And it simply just put the emphasis on the fact that you should exercise your vote, as that's a right that many people have. And you alluded to that earlier, that not a lot of people have the chance to vote. So it's very important that people did vote in this election and got their voice heard. But what else is interesting is the fact that there has been some mixed reaction on social media when it has come to this election, and some people were very for the actual election, some people weren't. But it seems to me that social media is becoming the new word of mouth, or the new voice for citizens all across Ontario.
Are people on Twitter giving you a sense, Nav, of which party they're leaning towards, or are they just, is it a soapbox on which to vent? What's going on there?
Well, actually, that's actually pretty interesting, is the fact that a lot of responses via social media have been negative towards the Conservative company and have been very positive towards the Liberals. But also, what else is interesting is the fact that a lot of responses have been neither or. They've just been negative about the whole concept of the election and whether or not it was the right call to have one. But now that we're past that issue, it's very interesting to kind of gauge what the conversation is on social media, and it will be interesting to see who comes out on top.
And so, are people starting to express, problems with is the gas plant issue, for example, a big thing on social media, or are they is it voter apathy that are they saying, what's the point because my vote doesn't count anyway, given the system that we have? Have you had a sense of that?
Well, I'll give you an example of a Twitter handle that I came across with earlier today, and that's @StopTimHudak. It was a strong Twitter handle that looks to have not been in favor of any party, but just more so voicing their concerns about Tim Hudak and the Conservative Party's platform. And it was very interesting. They were actually tweeting out pro-vote tweets earlier, telling individuals to go out there and get their voice heard. But they're also retweeting, NDPs, retweeting Liberal parties, retweeting anybody from any party that wasn't part of the Conservatives, just to kind of voice their concern over Tim Hudak's platform.
You mentioned Tim Hudak, so I'll just add my 2 cents, because I am on Twitter, and I think I was busted. I could see one of my tweets on the screen behind you. But that was before I've turned off my phone. But one of the things that blew up, I think, on Twitter for quite some time was when the Million Jobs Plan, the sort of the underpinnings, or the mathematics behind it, kind of was revealed to be somewhat faulty. The hashtags Hudak Math and Hudak Math 8, because I think every job was multiplied by a factor of 8 to arrive at this 1 million jobs, and people started mocking him. There were actually quite a number of very enjoyable, entertaining tweets if you're not Tim Hudak.
Yeah. It just goes to show that individuals, with the power of social media, are able to voice every single detail that comes across their mind, and that's a perfect example. Even the debate that happened last week, there was a lot of feedback via social media regarding who won the debate, who didn't look as strong in the debate. And it just goes to show, this is the new platform which individuals are talking. And what else is interesting is during the actual campaign trail, you had Kathleen Wynne, you had Andrew Horvath, you had Tim Hudak, you had other members of their respective parties going out to the community and actually tweeting out where they're currently at, using Facebook fan pages to really garner a lot of interest.
Now, just give us a quick, in 10 seconds, just tell us how they can get in touch with us, people, if they want to tweet at us.
Use the hashtag PeelVotes. We'll certainly, if your comment is definitely something that we would like to stay on the air, we'll definitely share it, as well as, just get involved. That's the hashtag we're running throughout the whole night. So please use the hashtag PeelVotes, and we'll get your opinion heard.
Excellent. So keep us posted, Nav, on developments on social media. We'd like to get into that a little bit more tonight, since it is such a powerful tool of communication now. And, there were bans in terms of disclosing results for federal elections from one end of the country to the other. So it's changing the landscape in the way that we vote. Now, moving on, I want to take you to a clip of Charles Sousa voting. Now, if you recall, Charles Sousa is the Minister of Finance. He's also the MPP for the riding of Mississauga South. And the reason, he might very well be the reason that we are, in fact, in this election. It was his budget, second budget that he presented in the House, that failed to pass when it didn't get the support of the NDP, which was critical. So let's go to that clip and see him voting. And there's Minister Charles Sousa, he's the Minister of Finance, casting his ballot, exercising his citizens' right to vote. I'm going to guess that he's voting for himself as he fills out that ballot. And we're going to be going to a live hit momentarily to his headquarters and see what's happening there. And we're still going to be talking, this vote that he's casting is an exercise of his democratic right, something that we hope was replicated across this province today by every one of you. The polls were open from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. with the exception of a couple of ridings where the voting had to be extended because of technical problems. And we are going to be looking at the results now. So results have started to trickle in, which is very exciting. Brampton Springdale's results, I can't tell how many polls have been reported so far, but it looks like the Liberals are in the lead in Brampton Springdale. Mississauga, Brampton South. Liberals are in the lead at 19. The total count right now, PCs are at 12, NDP 3, and Greens are at 1. You can follow that at the bottom of your screen along with me, and you can continue to follow that as we interview various people and go to various panels. We're going to continue to give you the live results and the numbers as they come in. Mississauga South, 1 poll reporting out of 241 folks, so we have a long way to go before we can actually give you some meaningful results, but we'll stay on the numbers as they unfold. Mississauga Brampton South now has 4 polls reporting. Keep an eye on this screen because you'll see all the candidates, the parties that they represent, and the number of votes that they are receiving. So far we have no polls reporting from Mississauga Erindale at the moment. But we're excited to see how things play out. This is a region that has been held, there are 9 ridings here in the Peel region. 7 of them have been held by Liberals for the last few years, 1 by the NDP, and 1 by the Progressive Conservatives. So we're going to see how this plays out and whether they hold on to those seats or whether there's going to be a shift in the landscape here in our region. Okay, so we are now going to go live to Charles Sousa's headquarters with our reporter, Raquel Rodriguez. Raquel. She might not be able to hear me just
Niru.
Yet. There we go. Hi, how are you?
Niru. I'm here at the Oasis. I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Good. I'm sorry, there's a bit of a time delay that I forgot about. So now that we know, we can continue.
Not a problem at all. I'm here at the Oasis Catering and Convention Center in the Mississauga South riding, where the election party for the Liberal incumbent and Minister of Finance, Charles Sousa, is taking place. Now, once one of the strongest bastion of PC supporters, Mississauga South has become more Liberal in the last election cycles. Now, in the 2007 election, this riding was one of the most watched, as it was expected to be one of the closest races. Charles Sousa won with more than a 5,000 vote victory over PC Tim Peterson. In 2011, this Charles Sousa won with more than a 50% victory and popular votes. Now, 905 region in the GTA will be the primary battleground for these elections because the PCs and Liberals are running a really tight race with the NDP not too far behind. What will be interesting to see are the factors that could potentially significantly impact the outcome of the elections and whether or not the cancellation of the controversial gas power plant in Mississauga South will affect tonight's polls. Niru?
Thank you, Raquel. I just have a question for you. What's the mood like in that in the headquarters of Charles Sousa right now? Are they optimistic, or is there a sense of it's a nail biter, we're going to have to wait and see?
Well, right now, people are slowly trickling in, so we haven't had an opportunity to talk to very many people. As we were here earlier, there was no one here at the Oasis Catering and Convention Center. So as people are trickling in, we'll definitely update you.
Okay, well, Raquel, thank you very much, reporting live from the headquarters of Charles Sousa's campaign. We'll, I'm sure, be back with you to find out the results as they come up. Thanks, Raquel.
For sure. Thank you, Niru.
Okay, and we are going to a clip with Charles Sousa right now, so stay tuned.
It's been a great campaign. I mean, the last 36 days have, I think, hopefully inspired people to recognize, you know, the positive and progressive plan we've brought forward, and recognizing that we're talking about our future generations. It's not just about today's election. It's about the foundation we're building for years to come. And I'm very privileged to have been representing the community since 2007, and I'm, you know, it's a very engaged community, and they've kept me apprised of much that has to be done and continues to be done. I look forward to continuing my job in representing the community and fostering positive work that needs to keep us going forward. Balance the books, provide for retirement security, and be very inclusive in the things that we need to do for everyone to be at their best.
Well, there you heard some of what is in the Liberal platform from the mouth of Charles Sousa, the Minister of Finance, who has been the minister for the last 16 months. The gas plant, as Raquel Rodriguez, our reporter on site, mentioned, the gas plant issue has been a pretty big issue. It's been dogging them for quite some time, and I'm bringing Michael back now to speak with his media panelist about this issue and others. Michael.
Thank you, Niru. I'm joined by Urs here. Urs is a community activist. She's also, how would you say, a social conscious motivator, aren't you, Urs? Urs joining us on the panel here today. Let's just shift gears for a second. We'll talk about Brampton just for a quick second. There's three candidates in Brampton who were the incumbents, two being Liberal, one being NDP. We had Harinder Malley and Vicky Dillon. Harinder Malley in Brampton Springdale, and of course Vicky Malley in Brampton West. But most particularly in the Bramalea Gore-Malton area was an NDP candidate who was Jagmeet Singh, a very visible candidate and one of the only NDP representatives in this particular area when we look at Brampton and Mississauga. Give us a bit of an indication of the power and what kind of a community force that Jagmeet Singh has in the area.
Well, Jagmeet Singh definitely impressed people, surprised people actually in the last election, the 2011 election. He is well known, well liked by all people, whether you're Liberal or a PC. Mm-hmm. I've known of people from other than NDP supporting him in the last election, and I know that even this time round, he seems to really appeal to a lot of people, but especially to the young voters. You know, he was able to really bring on young voters and send them home and tell them to get their parents to get out to vote and vote for him. Mm-hmm. And you know, when he ran the first time federally, he came close, but no cigar. Yep. But second time was the charm. I mean,
I've had an opportunity to meet and work with Jagmeet on several instances, and this is a gentleman who is a hands-on politician, offers a cell phone number and does call people back, and that really is a hallmark of today's politician, to be able to reach out to your community and make a difference. Mm-hmm. Let's switch gears now. As Niru was commenting to, we'll talk about the Mississauga area. There are five candidates in that area. We had four of them, or all five of them, I should say, were Liberals. And we have two, one in particular, Charles Sousa, that Niru was speaking to, who is a finance minister and some would say was the cause of this election. And also we've got Bob Delaney, who was the chief whip, all of them being Liberal. Interesting how in this one little enclave, everything is Liberal. Do you have a feeling that do you think that's going to change? Do we have the ability to make a change? Do you think that Charles Sousa, because of the gas plant issue, is in jeopardy?
Well, I think definitely, you know, the focus is on the gas plants, amongst other things, the deleted emails and what have you, the debt. I think that Peel was all red before Jagmeet. Jagmeet just, you know, came in and made Peel, you know, orange for the first time ever. Will it change the riding? I think it will, actually. I feel like this time we will see some blue in there.
I think you're right, Urs. Interestingly enough, you know, they say that a municipal campaign for mayor is a marathon, not a sprint. A provincial campaign is a much shorter duration of time. And as we are well aware, we are in a municipal campaign both for Brampton and for Mississauga. And ironically, just the other day, the outgoing mayor of Mississauga, Ms. Hazel McCallion, decided that she was going to make a statement in favor of the Liberals. Ironically, well, she's within her grasp, I would say. But interestingly enough, we had an opportunity to talk to the mayor and see what her thoughts were with regards to provincial politics.
Well, the only basis on which I support them is due to what they've done for the municipalities. When it comes to other issues, we at the local level are not responsible for. That'll be up to the voters to decide whether they're happy with what they've done on many, many other issues. But when it comes to the municipalities, the Liberal government has done an awful lot to upload items that the Harris and Hudak government downloaded and I was on the task force that helped to negotiate on many of these items with the Liberal government in Ontario. And, you know, for instance, the Harris-Hudak government demanded that we send money to Toronto to help with their social costs. And as a result of that decision, we sent the Region of Peel, on behalf of Mississauga, Brampton, and Kelowna, sent $791 million to Toronto, of which the taxpayers in Mississauga picked up 62% of that on their property tax. The Liberal government gave us the gas tax. We received $21 million to date of gas tax to help with our transit. The Harris-Hudak government cut off all subsidy to transit. So that gas tax is a valuable asset to our income to us to build our transit system. And I could go on with many items. I wrote a letter outlining only the items that affects the municipalities. I don't make any comment on other issues. In regard to the gas plants, the citizens of Mississauga, the citizens of Oakville, the council of the city of Mississauga, and the council of the town of Oakville strongly opposed the gas plants that were approved. As a result, they were approved by the Ontario Power Authority. They were cancelled by the government. So therefore, the councils of Oakville and Mississauga and the citizens won the battle. They canceled the plant. Unfortunately, you don't cancel contracts unless it costs you a lot of money. And so the cancellation of those contracts cost a lot of money to all the taxpayers of Ontario, which is unfortunate because it was a bad decision made by the Ontario Power Authority to approve those plants. And when I said it was water under the bridge, you can't get that money back. It's paid out, so it's gone. I don't see you getting it back. It's unfortunate that it happened. And they did cancel them to save 4 positions in Mississauga because the plant was half up. Should have never been allowed to get half up.
That was going to be definitely my next question.
Decisions. But the point is, it's made, it's gone. Let's get on. Let's make sure it never happens again. Bad decisions that were made by the Ontario Power Authority or on any other issue. So those are my positions. When it comes to other issues like auto insurance, health, education, I'm not qualified to speak on that. There are others that are far more qualified to speak on it. I can only speak on how the Liberal government has helped the municipalities to upload the many costs that were downloaded on us by the Harris-Hudak government.
Here we come. Here we come. Well, very interesting. I dare say I've never seen a municipal politician who's been so adamant in her support of a provincial party. Interesting. And you can say there's no reason that Madam Hazel McCallion is going to get any positions in the future government if the Liberals do form the next government. But Urs, just as a quick comment here for 30 seconds, what do you think? Is that the right thing for a mayor to do, to endorse a government or a party before everybody votes?
It's her city. She's concerned about it, and we saw her in the box when Kathleen Wynne was being, elected as the leader. So I think she's done that more than once, and it's no surprise that she would not speak up for her city. Well,
I think she was driving a little off the road, pun intended on that one with the current release. But hey, she's within her rights. We respect Madam Mayor Hazel McCallion. Let's go back to Niru with more information. Niru?
Thank you, Michael. Interestingly enough, I was at the Liberal Leadership Convention, and as Urs mentioned, she has made no bones about who she supports from the very beginning. So that is not a neutral mayor, but she may have very good reasons, political reasons, to throw her support behind Kathleen Wynne and the Liberal Party. I am joined now by Bill McBain, who is a community advocate, and don't we all need community advocates? Actually, before we get to Bill, Bill, are you there? I'm here. Oh, great, Bill. I'm glad. I actually was supposed to throw this just came in. So something's just taking place. I think this is going to be the way the night goes, because we're getting results as they come in, and we have hits coming in. So I apologize. I'm just going to keep you waiting for just a second. But we have Radha Taylor standing by with Jagmeet Singh, who, as you know, is the candidate for Bramley Gore Malton. Radha. Okay, Radha is standing by and going to bring us Jagmeet Singh right now. Hi, Radha, are you there?
Thanks. I'm here in the Bramley Gore Malton riding with Jagmeet Singh, member of provincial parliament with the NDP party. Now, Jagmeet, walking around this neighborhood, there's been so many parties represented. So what are the stakes for you?
Well, the stakes are really high because this is our first re-election. When we broke through in this riding, it was the first time that the NDP had ever won any seat in the history of Canada here in the Peel region. So now we're trying to move for re-election and hopefully show and find out whether the community is really connected with me as a candidate. So I'm really excited about the re-election here.
Since you are hoping for a re-election, what has the new campaign experience been like for you?
Yeah, the campaign's very different in a re-election versus the first time being elected. There's a certain novelty that you have when you're a first-time candidate and you're getting elected for the first time. Now it's really a testament or a test of how well the community has connected with me as a candidate and how well they're connecting with the party. And we're really excited by the response. I think that there's been a great level of goodwill that's been developed with me as a candidate and also with the NDP, and particularly with Andrea Horwath, our leader, who's shown some tremendous leadership in standing up for the issues that really matter to people in Brampton.
You have been talking to many. What has been the main messages coming to you?
Well, one of the things that I'm so excited by and I'm so honored by that's been a feedback is that for too long people have felt that politicians haven't really done what they said they would do. And in my case, the response that I'm receiving is that I've actually followed through. I committed to and I promised to raise the issue of auto insurance, and it was an issue of one riding out of 107 ridings, and we turned that issue into a province-wide issue, something that all three parties are talking about, and we forced the Liberal government to come down on a budget request that we had made, a demand we had made, to promise a 15% reduction. So we're really honored, and the people are so excited that I've followed through on what I said I would do, and in fact, they feel that they've a renewed sense in the faith of politics and politicians.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jagmeet.
Thank you.
This is Jagmeet Singh with the NDP party in the Bramley Gore Malton riding. Back to you, Niru.
Thank you, Radha. That was Radha with Jagmeet Singh in the Bramley Gore Malton riding. We're going to see how that unfolds tonight. He has been an MPP for one term. We'll see if he gets re-elected or if he has a serious challenge by some of his other candidates. I am now joined. Now we're getting back to what I had initially brought to you. Bill McBain, who is self-styled as a community advocate, and I had started to say, don't we all need a community advocate to be passionate about our cities? Bill, welcome.
Good to be here. Thank you.
It's great to have you. Thank you for joining us for this program. And so let's just start here. What thoughts have been running through your mind about this campaign so far?
Well, overall, how lackluster it's been. I think none of the campaigns have distinguished themselves in any major way, you know, I don't think it's been a campaign of great and interesting ideas. It's been some great ideas have been put out there, but I think they're very questionable. The Million Jobs Plan, which I think is ideology, for instance, and not economics in any meaningful way. In fairness, the one, I guess, big idea that is out there is the pension plan that's been proposed by the Liberal Party, in which the NDP has promoted for a very long time, and then chose not to support it in the election. But other than that, there hasn't been a lot of stimulation in the intellectual stimulation for the voters in the campaign.
Now, I'm guessing by that issue that the NDP supported and then didn't, you're referring to the Ontario Retirement Pension Plan?
I am indeed.
Okay, and so was there a change of heart in the NDP camp?
No, I think it was politics. It was strategy. You know, the NDP has traditionally, and its caucus and membership, as far as I know, still is, very supportive of good, healthy pensions. One of the huge problems we have in this country and in this province is that most young people who are entering the workforce now have no expectation of a pension at the end of their working lives. And for most of us, I think that's absolutely unacceptable. And therefore, the NDP has traditionally supported extending pension benefits whenever possible. That's why it was a bit odd when it was on the table that it was defeated.
Let's talk a little bit about that. I think it came as a big surprise to a lot of people that the NDP did not support the budget, a budget which, by most standards and most political analysts' reports, was fairly left-leaning in terms of the kinds of programs and policies that they wanted to promote. So why then did the NDP and Andrea Horwath decide to trigger this election and throw us into this $90 million campaign?
Well, first of all, I mean, often people talk about the cost of election campaigns. It's the cost of democracy. Government spends a lot of money, sometimes good, sometimes bad, and a whole lot of things. But if you want a healthy democracy, you have to be willing to go to the people whenever that's possible. And why they didn't support it, again, I think it was a case of tactics. It was a belief that the public was probably very, very tired with a Liberal government that they'd seen as incompetent, if not corrupt, in its waste of money. So that became, I think, in the minds of the people in the legislature that particular day, that was top of mind, not necessarily the very progressive issues that were on the table in the budget. And I think the NDP membership itself would be very split on whether the right thing happened or not that particular day.
That's great perspective that you add to the conversation. I'm hoping we can hang on to you for a few more minutes, Bill, but just hang tight, because we are going to Pam Ball now, who is speaking with the campaign manager for Bob Delaney. Pam, can you hear me? Okay. I think Pam can't hear me just yet, but let's. There we go.
Manager Andre Hoffman. Hi Andre, how are you tonight?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Talk to us about this campaign. What's the mood like here tonight?
Well, tonight especially everyone is very excited. It's last day of very busy 5 weeks, so we're all quite excited to see how well we do and what the voters in Mississauga streets will have to say.
And you've worked with Bob in the past as his campaign manager. Was there anything that you did this time that was different?
Well, I'd like to think every time you do this you get a little better at it, but it's my third campaign with Bob, and this one was, comparatively speaking, quite fast-paced. So having a great team in place, which we're lucky to have, is a huge asset.
And there you have it. That's Andre Hoffman, the campaign manager for Bob Delaney. Niru, back to you.
Back to you. Let me just ask you, as a community advocate, what you think are the key priorities, as far as you're concerned, for our community.
Well, for this particular area, I think obviously pensions on a long-term basis, and that's certainly going to be a federal issue in next year's federal election. But I think a huge issue for the economy, for people in general, is transportation. If you want a healthy economy, if you want people and goods to move easily and efficiently and effectively around an area, you need to provide the infrastructure that allows that to happen. It allows people to get to work, it allows people to get to education, to medical appointments, whatever they need to get to. It also cuts down on pollution and improves air quality. But I think more and more it's impossible for people and importantly goods to get around this, the GTA effectively. It's costing business a great deal of money and it's only getting worse. There needs to be a serious commitment to a broad public transportation system that moves goods and people more effectively and gets people out of their cars.
Absolutely not an issue that we can ignore. So have you seen anything from any of the parties and their platforms that actually leads you to believe that they will tackle this problem of gridlock and transit with commitment and dedicated funds and the kind of the passion and zeal that we need?
Well, I've heard a lot of talk about it, and I've heard a lot of talk about these things for a great amount of time. The Highway 10 LRT, for instance, has been talked about in this area for as long as I've lived here, which is over 17 years, and yet the shovel hasn't entered the ground. And it's thrown up every provincial election comes along, and various councillors get up and, oh, look how committed we are to the future of public transportation. It will be too little too late when it's finally built, and there's a lot more that needs to go into the system. The Liberals have put forward a real commitment, I think, to public infrastructure and transportation infrastructure, but I'll believe it when I see it. There's been a lot of talk on this issue for a very long time. It's very similar in many ways to lakeshore development in the GTA and in the City of Toronto in particular. There's been plans and plans and plans and talk and talk and talk for years, decades, about a development along the lakeshore and the waterfront that is friendly for the citizens and is broad multi-use. Where is it? It just hasn't happened. At the end of the day, there's a default to developers and there's a default to highways, and we're no farther ahead. There are lots of examples of cities elsewhere in the world and in North America where they've developed public transportation and their waterfronts together, and it has greatly enhanced the viability, the economic viability of the city and the attractiveness to both tourists and industry.
And Bill, I'm going to have to ask you to hang in there because we have another hit coming in. We're just going to throw to Janella Massa, who is going to be having a conversation with Mr. Karim and giving us an update on what is happening over there. Janella.
Thanks, Niru. I'm here with the NDP candidate for Mississauga East Cooksville, Fayez Karim. Thank you so much for being with us. This was your first run at office, and I want to know a little bit about what this experience has been like for you.
It has been a tremendous experience. It's actually exceeded my expectations. People were great. People were really interested in hearing what the NDP has to offer. And when we speak one-on-one with people, they're very impressed with us, and we were fortunate and very lucky that we managed to convert a lot of people to the NDP because people saw reason and value in what we were saying. And it's just been a phenomenal experience, and I'm very grateful for this opportunity to be able to serve Mississauga.
So when you're out canvassing and you're out talking to people in the riding, what are they saying to you? What are their concerns? What are they looking for this election?
Some of the biggest concerns are jobs, okay? There are 555,000 people that's looking for employment and can't find work. People are really concerned about that. The other concern we have is the cost of living, okay? Everything here is getting really very expensive. Hydro bills, auto insurance premiums, food costs, all of these things, housing costs. So people are really concerned about these things. They're concerned that salaries are not keeping up with the cost with the inflation. So people are worried, people feel kind of despondent, and they are looking for hope, and they are hoping that we will be able to do something about that.
And, this is a Liberal-held riding. How hopeful, how optimistic are you about the success of the NDP, overall?
I think there's going to be some surprises tonight. Okay, what I have been hearing on the ground at the beginning of the campaign, people have been very enthusiastic about the NDP. People welcome us into their homes, and people understand what we're saying, and they are very well aware of the level of corruption that has been going on under the current government, and they're not happy with that at all. So our reception has been really phenomenal, and I am expecting that Mississauga is going to be a strong NDP riding.
Thank you so much for speaking with us today, Fayaz, and good luck to you, and we'll watch those results coming in this evening. We'll send it back to the studio. Niru?
Thank you very much, Janella. That was Fayaz Karim. He's the NDP candidate for Mississauga East Cooksville. And Rogers Studio, along with the boards of trade of Mississauga and Brampton, hosted a series of debates here. And in those debates, I found it quite interesting that Mr. Karim pulled no punches with respect to either of the two other leading parties. He said, about Tim Hudak and the PCs, we don't know if they can create 1 million jobs, but we do know that they'll cut 100,000 jobs. And with respect to the Liberals, he asked again and again, are the results of the Liberals working for you, when the Liberal candidates were expounding on what the results that they had achieved over the last few years. Now we're going to go back to Michael, who is going to give us a bit of a sort of a perspective that matters maybe more to people and their pocketbooks. We talk about big things like budgets and deficits and scandals, but at the end of the day, people want to know about pensions, about health care, about senior services, about programs. Michael, can you give us some perspective on that with your guest?
Yes, Niru, one of the things which was a platform on this election was all about debt. And the Liberals' position was that they promised to balance the books within 3 years by reducing waste and moderate tax increases. The Progressive Conservatives, who boasted that there was a $12.2 billion deficit, said that they vowed to balance the books within 2 years, and in part by cutting 100,000 public sector jobs, freezing salaries, eliminating corporate welfare, and the use of the government, reducing the size of government, I'm sorry, and also in a 6% cut in program spending. And finally, the New Democrats said that they promised to balance the books within 3 years, and appointing a member a minister of savings. Interesting. Just what we need more government, as they would say, eliminating tax credit loopholes and stopping corporate giveaways and corporate tax increases. One of the groups of people who one could say has been raised and exists now with no debt are Canadians who are retired. The Canadian Association of Retired People are a large group of people who grew up without credit cards and generally did not live on the basis of debt. I'm joined by Mr. Peter Horwath, who is with the Canadian Association of Retired People. And Peter, I wanted to ask you, one of the elements that people who are retired generally have a fixed income, but were raised without facing debt. What is their feeling or their perspective when we look at Ontario with a $12.5 billion debt? How does that debt affect folks who are retired?
Well, quite frankly, Michael, I think for the senior population, certainly the ones I've talked to, it's not an issue. It really isn't. It was never a front burner kind of thing that people were excited about. I think the concern would be, although my parents retired with no debt, that's not the case necessarily today. You've got some 300,000 seniors in Canada who are getting an income below the poverty line at this point in time. We have a sponsor whose job is to go out and counsel seniors with their kids on how to get out of debt. They've maxed out the credit card. They read the fine line and say, if you only pay the minimum, it'll be paid off in 246 years. Yeah. There's some serious problems that weren't there when my parents were facing retirement and moving into retirement.
So with the complexion that we just left in the government, where we had a minority government with the Liberals steering, and one could say that the perspective of the Liberals was to spend our way out of debt, and the Conservatives would say potentially that they wanted to restrict and reduce the size of debt. What is your feeling? What is the appetite of retired people now, from your perspective of looking at this election?
Well, in terms of it, if you're still staying with the debt piece, if we go in one direction...
Cash is king, Peter. I mean, you're in a fixed income, so as things go up, the fixed income is the whole problem. And the more that the debt accumulates, does that not put downward pressure on our retired folks?
Well, it does, especially if you want to pay it back sooner, because that could well mean a cut in services, it could well mean increased taxes, and those are issues that I don't think a lot of seniors can face. You've got an increase in the number of seniors who are going back to work. At one point, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, the ratio was perhaps 20% went back to work and 10% of those went because they had to. That's now 30% going back to work and 20% going back because they have to.
They say 70 is the new 65. Does that resonate with you?
Oh, I'm thinking 80, 85.
Oh, goodness. No, 70. We had freedom 55, Peter, for goodness sake.
There's
70
no freedom
70,
55
there's
today.
no freedom 55
no freedom
unless you
50.
win the lottery.
Exactly.
So let's use our magic wand, because I know Niru's going to come back to us with some interesting facts and updates quite shortly. What do you think the appetite is going to be for a change in government? Do you think that your folks in CARP, Canadian Association for Retired People, are looking for a change, or do you feel that they're happy with the road and the tack that we're on?
Well, the mood that I've picked up is anything but happy. I think people feel disillusioned. I think they are extremely ticked off with all the things I think have been mentioned probably on this program tonight along the way. And I think the party and the politician who can come out and really convince the ratepayer, the taxpayer, the public, that they're a party or an individual of integrity, of transparency, of someone who will in fact serve the people and not expect to be served by the people, I think it'll take politics back to what I think is a lofty vocation. And it's certainly not there at this point.
Excellent purview. Thank you. Mr. Peter Horwath from Howarth. Howarth, Mr. Peter Howarth.
Been confused with Andrea Horwath.
Andrea with the Canadian Association of Retired Peers. Niru, up to you.
Thank you, Michael, for that interesting conversation. I have with me right now Sarah Brana. She's with Pam Hundle at her headquarters right now. Pam, of course, is the progressive conservative candidate for the riding of Brampton-Springdale. Sarah?
Hello there, Niru. We're here. Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Niru.
Hi. Can you hear me? Okay, great. So
yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, we're here live at of course at Pam Hundle's at her get together that we're waiting for her to actually come into. So tensions are a little high here, but certainly we're waiting for the numbers to come in and trickle down so that we have an idea of where we're at right now. But now, as you can tell, we've got some people coming in slowly and making their way in for the evening.
Now, Sarb, Pam is not a first-time candidate. She's run before in a couple of other elections. So has that prepared her well for this campaign?
It certainly has. I had a chat with her a little earlier, and she certainly spoke about how important it was for her to speak to her constituents and to have that open door policy, because accountability was #1 for her. So she certainly states that if she's elected in this nomination, that she's certainly going to make that open door policy very, very important for her. So she's certainly no stranger to this. She comes from a family where her father has actually had some experience in running in politics. So let's see what happens for her.
Okay, so Sarb, she actually ran in a different riding the first time. She ran in Bramley-Gore-Malton, where she lost to the Liberal candidate Kuldeep Kullar in 2007 by 7,000 votes. Then she switched over to this riding, Brampton-Springdale, and she contested this riding and lost to Linda Jeffrey by less than 3,000 votes. Does she feel that with Linda Jeffrey out of the picture, of course, because she's running for the mayoralty race of Brampton, which is coming up later this fall, does she feel that that her chances have improved somewhat? Or, I mean, is she feeling optimistic that this is her time?
You know, it's an interesting point that you make, Niru, because she said that she certainly thought about the element of all the work that she's done with constituents and the fact that Linda Jeffries is running in the mayoral race, and certainly she's done her legwork, so to speak. But she also made a good point, and she said, you know, at the end of the day, you don't know how the voters are going to vote until they actually cast their ballots and the numbers come in. So she feels that she's been prepared and she's done all the work that she's had to do. But she certainly is a philosopher in the sense where she says that she's certainly going to leave it up to the universe and see what comes through.
Well, and to a certain extent, Sarb, it's probably going to be whether or not the electorate of her riding feel that they have a connection with her party and her party's platform, because during the debates that I watched, she was, you know, very passionate about the PC platform, yes, the jobs and the economy, and you know, the kind of failures of the Liberal Party. So I guess we're going to see how the people feel.
You know, you're 100% right, Niru. She certainly, when we spoke to her earlier, she spoke to me about the fact that politics is in her blood. She said to me, Sarb, this is a passionate aspect of my life, and I will never give up when it comes to speaking on behalf of the people. I will do whatever I can, wherever I can, when I can, and which is why I've come back to the race again. So it's certainly in her blood, and we'll see what the numbers say.
Sarb, thank you so much. That's Sarb Brana reporting from Pam Hundel's camp in the riding of Brampton-Springdale. We'll be back with you later, of course, as the results start to come in. Thanks, Sarb. Okay, so Nav, you're back with me, and I think you have some updates to give us about social media. I can't wait to hear.
I definitely do, and
what
it's very
people have been saying.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of great action on social media, especially when it comes to some of the local events. As you can see, the photo to my right, this is an image from @Platypus, where he just snapped a shot of Jagmeet Singh's current headquarters. So we'll see whether or not if that's. Yeah, it's very festive. It's decked out in NDP colors, so we'll have to wait and see if that'll be a victory speech on Jagmeet's end.
Hopefully it's not presumptuous.
Yeah, definitely. And also, according to the Brampton Guardian, cheers broke out when they found out that Vic Dillon had an early lead in the Brampton West constituency. So we'll see if that can also keep up when it comes to the election. But what else is interesting with social media is the fact that a lot of people are taking a limit and actually saying that, you know, the Liberals have already won. There's a lot of people tweeting about that, you know, a Liberal victory is already upon us. And what's very interesting is that people are now questioning whether it's a minority or a majority. So it's definitely a lot of people are pretty vocal. But one other thing I wanted to pinpoint here is the fact that, you know, is the conversation only about the election? Because right now, according to Toronto Trends, the World Cup is actually trending above Ontario elections. So that's very interesting to see whether or not people are really paying attention to the current findings.
It's interesting because on Twitter, or maybe this is the case with all social media, but everybody kind of fashions themselves an expert, right? Because you're somewhat anonymous, you can say whatever you think, and you kind of feel like you've mastered the subject to whatever extent you have, and you can pronounce on it. But, you know, the truth of the matter is we're very early in the election results so far. I'm seeing, you know, we have over 200 polls in each of the ridings and less than 30 or 35 that are reported. So it might, if major networks aren't calling it a majority-minority Liberal government, I think it's kind of amusing to me that other people are already calling it on Twitter.
Yeah, no, and I guess that's the beauty behind social media is the real-time interaction. I think as the numbers roll in, people are, you know, already jumping to conclusions, and it's very interesting to see, you know, whether or not these conclusions are actually going to be correct once all the votes have been counted.
Great. Thank you so much, Nat. Stay on top of that for us. Right now, we're going to go to Radha Taylor, who's standing by with the campaign manager for Kuldeep Kullar, who is, of course, the Liberal candidate for Bramley-Gore-Malton. And here he is.
Thanks, Niru. I'm here with David Valentin with the Liberal Party. He is the deputy campaign manager for Dr. Kuldeep Kullar. Now, David, Dr. Kuldeep Kullar used to be an MPP, and it's your goal right now to try to get him back to that seat. What has been the challenge for you thus far?
Well, you know, there's been a lot of challenges, but I think it's been a very long election. And, you know, there's a lot of things going on today, the FIFA World Cup. It was raining earlier today. So we're hoping people go out and vote and really become engaged this campaign. And there's only an hour left now. But hopefully people have turned out to vote in good numbers, because we want to make sure our democracy is strong and when people vote, that's how we get our results. So I'm hoping people voted for Dr. Kuldeep Kullar. We'll see you in an hour.
Now, what's been the response been like while you and him have been campaigning around the neighborhoods and the community?
Well, you know, a lot of people miss him because he did used to be the MPP for this area, and he did a great job. And they really want someone at Queen's Park who is focused on them, who is focused on the issues that matter to them, and who is focused on building bridges between the community here in Bramalea and the provincial government, the municipal government, and the federal government. And they haven't been seeing that leadership from our current MPP.
Tell me briefly what's been the impact that people have come to you and said, this is what he has done for me?
Well, it's personal stories because he's been a doctor in our community for so long, working at Peel Memorial when it used to be up and running in the emergency room. And we've met people who have been his patients, people who he has delivered when he was delivering babies, people who he helped get his medical accreditation because he helped so many doctors coming from abroad get their medical licenses here in Canada. And so the stories have been really very personable about, you know, how he's impacted their lives directly. And people, you know, want someone who's going to be involved like that in our community and who's not afraid to get, you know, a lot of hard work done in between going to the legislature.
Thank you very much. That is David Valentin, the Deputy Campaign Manager for Dr. Kuldeep Kullar, the Liberal candidate for the Bramalea-Gore-Malton riding. Back to you, Niru.
Thank you, Radha. Interestingly enough, that's a very young campaign manager, so it might be appealing to a very different demographic in that riding. Kuldeep Kullar, as we mentioned earlier, was the MPP from 2007 to 2011 and is seeking re-election in the riding of Bramalea-Gore-Malton. Right now, the Bramalea-Gore-Malton standings with, I'm not sure how, with 10 polls reporting out of 291, so still very early, but at the moment, Jagmeet Singh of the NDP is in the lead by roughly just under 200 votes or so. But a lot can change over the next little while, so stay tuned. Don't turn your dial. And we'll be right back with more results shortly, but follow along on your screen. In the meantime, I'm going to send this back to Michael, who was in the middle of an interview, and we had to cut to bring you all sorts of breaking developments. Michael, back to you.
Thank you, Niru. Always good to have your updates. We can hold our opinions. Your updates are always more important. Continuing my discussion with Mr. Peter Horwath, we wanted to change gears here a little bit and talk about the pension plan. One of the platforms that the Liberals were talking about was the reform of the Canadian pension plan. Their assumption is that 1/3 of Ontario people in their workplaces do not have a pension, and they believe that anybody who doesn't have a pension, they were proposing that 3.8% of their salary should be put aside. A short-term gain for short-term pain for long-term gain was Kathleen Wynne's moniker. The PCs say that a tax on jobs would just reduce jobs, and the NDP really didn't have too much of a comment on that. What is your take, Peter, on that with regards to what the Liberals were proposing to basically endorse a reform of the Ontario pension plan?
Well, first of all, Michael, that if we look at all the promises, the platitudes, the planks, the platforms, call it what you will, nothing really directly was put to seniors. The closest thing probably was the Ontario retirement pension plan, the proposed. But that really is a tomorrow thing. It's not a today thing. It's for our kids and our grandchildren. It will not affect us one little bit. In fact, if I was hoping to benefit from that particular plan, if implemented tomorrow, I would start to draw, I think, when I'm 112 years old. So
you're a good-looking man, but 112, that's
going to be
toughie.
tough. It's going to be tough. So I'm not looking forward to hanging out for that. I think, though, it's a good step, again, for our children and our grandchildren, because as it stands now, pensions are, it's a horrible situation for young people out there today. They're not getting defined benefit plans anymore for the most part in the workplace. They're getting defined contribution plans, which are a whole different kettle of fish. The Liberals stepped up and came up with a plan that models itself after CPP, which is an excellent, excellent concept, because it'll generate volume, which gives leverage, which results in lower management fees, which results in good management of your fund. The actual impact on the dollar, though, if we look at as they say, you should retire on, say, 60% of your lifetime kind of annual earnings.
Right.
For a $90,000 a year person, that means you should try and retire around $50,000. You get, if you retired now with
as
nothing
an annual
else,
wage, you're saying.
As an annual
so
wage.
So if you're grossing 90 when you're working, you should take 50.
You should be getting 50 at least.
I'm just going to stop you for a second, because one of the interesting points with regards to Rogers Television is that we go out into the community. We want to find out what you, our folks in the community, have to say. And earlier we had an opportunity to speak to a bunch of people on the street and find out what their thoughts were on this new pension plan that the Liberals were talking about.
It's very tough. I mean, there are times when I have to even go to the food bank because balance doesn't match the income, you know. A lot of seniors have fallen below the scale, and we're struggling. But like, we have no dental, we have no, you know, medical. Everything has to be paid out of our own pockets. Of course, you suffer. Like, you know, to pay Paul, you steal from Peter, you know, and you try not to, and you get behind in your bills.
I think it's really important to be able to work up a consistent pension throughout your entire life, and I think it's sort of silly that if you work a job, you gather all these benefits in this whole pension, and then you move somewhere else, you lose it. So it's almost like you're in a situation where you're forced to work the same job your entire life. There's not really any flexibility. So I think it would be a lot better if you could have one sort of thing, and every job you work could pay into a general pension fund. I think that would just be better in general for people who work.
Well, I believe the pension rates are a little bit low. There's definitely not enough to retire on. I believe it is the provincial government's job to maybe take care of the people that are paying the taxes for all those years. Quebec's got something very similar, and it works out great for them. Definitely needs to be updated on our end. I think as the working population ages, a lot of them are going to be moving into retirement. Our economy is still going to be reliant on a lot of people spending money, and if they don't have money to spend, then that's a big portion of the population that's not helping things out.
Yeah, I think the pension plan, I think people are, they're not really getting really everything that they deserve after putting all those years of service into their company and the loyalty to their company. And it is a hot topic, it's an issue. And these retirees and the seniors that are dependent on their pension, they need to get more back for what they put in over their years of service.
Peter, some interesting comments. You know, if you reflect back on those gold-plated pensions, the teachers, fire, police, ambulance, and certain higher-end corporate folks, those days are gone. What do you take from that, particularly that young gentleman who said, you know, that those pensions aren't there and that they have to rely more on savings and being more conscious of making their nest egg?
Well, let me just comment, Michael, that I have one of those gold-plated pensions, and I'm not sure what that means, other than I was in education, and I paid 10 cents on every dollar I earned.
You invested in the Toronto Maple Leafs, I just want you to know that.
We did, and that was one of the sad mistakes. But,
oh, stop it now. I bleed blue here.
Well, we're not showing results. We're not showing results.
Peter,
it's going to happen.
We're not going to have a spitting fight here, but you guys did very well. The teacher's pension is a powerful and very smart pension, and you worked hard, you deserve it, but those days are gone. That doesn't exist anymore.
It does not exist anymore for anyone out there, and that's why young people can't save. I don't know if you could save, but when I was raising the kids, I didn't have any money left at the end of the month. So I couldn't put money away for an RSP. That's why you have to have a mandatory contribution. And that's why I like Wynn's plan. You've got to contribute.
An interesting perspective. She said 3.8% of those people who do not have a pension plan should have part of their fees or part of their pay put aside for a pension. We'll come back and discuss a little bit more with Peter, but now let's go back to Niru.
Thanks, Michael. Well, Dufferin-Caledon had a little bit of a hiccup earlier today. They had delayed or extended hours for the voting polls to stay open because they had some technical difficulties, but they're closed. They have begun to report on their polls, and we are now heading there with Emily Johnson, who is speaking with the campaign manager for Sylvia Jones in the Dufferin-Caledon riding.
Thanks, Niru. I'm here with Kevin Weatherby, the campaign manager for Sylvia Jones, the Progressive Conservative candidate in the Dufferin-Caledon riding. So, Kevin, can you please tell me how you're feeling heading into tonight?
Sure, well, I'm feeling great. It's been a fantastic campaign. We've had over 100 volunteers helping us out, everything from knocking on doors, banging in signs, working the phones.